Thank you for making it this morning. I know everyone's braving the traffic. I myself know I've spent about 8.5 hours in a car since I arrived in Bangalore on Sunday night. So it's a very big city and there's a lot of road to cover here. But without further ado, I'd like to get on with this panel on analytics. We're going to be doing this in a pretty casual fashion, and probably towards the end of the session, I'd like to jump into the audience and take questions from anyone else to make it exciting. So, Nimit.
Yes, Ronen.
Who are you, what do you do, and what did you eat for breakfast?
Okay. So, I'm from Pocket, which is into the business of rewarded video ads. And we've been doing quite decent for the last 18 months across India and Southeast Asia. Enough of Pocket, but let me come back to my breakfast. That's more interesting. So I think I explored every corner of the breakfast room. I think I still missed out on some parts. So thankfully, I'm here tomorrow. So I've identified the places where I need to go tomorrow. So, join me, guys, if you are here.
It's good you analyzed the buffet very well.
Yeah, it's all about analytics.
Great. So, Dr. Kushal.
Right.
Good morning. Thank you for being here as well and joining this panel. Tell us about yourself, what you do, and something interesting about why you are a doctor.
Wow. Well, that's the first question I've sort of got in terms of sort of why I'm a doctor. And I think to sort of lay the foundation right for, I think, a lot of people who don't know me out here in this room, I've been with digital and brand marketing since forever, 21 years. Founder member of Rediff.com, many other companies in the past. I think what I sort of just like is just digital, analytics, data, advertising, brand media. I do that for a living. I've just moved on from a very large corporate role at the Reliance Group where I used to take care of all digital marketing. Setting up a product, it's going to be an app, it's going to be a service, and that's what I'm going to be doing. But the reason I'm here is, of course, that I think I did my doctorate actually on a very interesting subject which is pertinent to this discussion in terms of the various different triggers or touch points that people go through in their typical day of life in terms of from the time they get up to the time they sleep. And they don't realize through the subconscious in terms of even when you sort of brush with using Colgate, it's talking to you saying that maybe time to replenish the toothpaste because it's about 80% over. So I think ultimately the fact is we decide in terms of our media habits, we decide in terms of what we're going to consume, purchase, every single thing from small little things in our life we don't realize, and the fact is sort of they're all perhaps some way talking in the language of advertising to us. So yes, to answer your question, what did I have for breakfast? I went to the usual, I'm one of those guys who sort of gets, when I go to the airport, it's just one place I flock to, so I just had my cup of a little cappuccino at Starbucks, and that's what I've done in the morning before I got the flight.
So you just got in this morning then?
I got in this morning, that's
wow.
right.
That's great. Mr. Pritesh, great to see you again. I think
Likewise.
this is the second time we face one another on a panel.
Right.
Right.
Last time you were with me, and this time you're moderating me.
Yes. So tell the audience about yourself and about Uninstall and something interesting about you as well.
Sure, absolutely. So thanks. Good morning, everyone. Pritesh, I'm co-founder of Uninstall.io, niche mobile analytics company, helping mobile apps understand reasons and track patterns of uninstalls for them to help them reduce their uninstalls. So that's what we do. And it's been an interesting morning for me, Ronen. So I woke up at 4 to attend a Tamil wedding today at 5:30. And so in case, if I go out of line, please stop me. I'm really almost sleepy, half sleepy.
Wow, so you've already seen somebody get married this morning. Wow, that's amazing. So let's jump into this. The topic of conversation today is about analytics. And there's many definitions or ways that you can look at analytics. For example, starting with Nimit, how he analyzed the breakfast table this morning and decided what he wanted to eat and what he didn't want to eat and what he was going to cover today and what he was going to cover tomorrow, and use that data to make decisions about if he's still hungry or not, right? Sure. So we're looking at analytics in mobile. So Nimit, tell us what's the biggest pain point that you see as a network in mobile analytics today?
So since we are in the business of monetization, and we see a lot of time when the developers don't understand their players quite well, and they put across their monetization activities inside. And sometimes we have to get back to them and tell them that, the conversion ratio is going down because the reward that you're giving them is not encouraging. So maybe you need to relook at the position where you're putting your ad, or what is the reward you're giving. So there's always a continuous dialogue between us and the developer. And obviously there's a case study that I would like to share once all of us have given some insights about a developer who actually is making a lot of money by just being a little smart on analytics.
Cool. Dr. Kushal, I'm sure you have having been in analytics and mobile for quite some time, what do you see as the biggest pain point in mobile today?
Well, I don't really see just one pain point, but I think the topic, of course, is brilliant what we're discussing, but I think it's also, overtly abused as well. A lot of people get into the hardcore detailing in terms of sort of so much data crunching in terms of sort of what they can perhaps get, but I really haven't seen a lot of companies really get out there and actually utilize this data. So on one side, I think you're spending a lot of money in terms of almost micro-managing sort of what's really happening in terms of on the app, what time of day, what hour of day, what kind of person's using it, every single thing. And the fact is then after sitting on that data, I think companies haven't really sort of, gone ahead to use that data efficiently. So that's the large gap we need to address. So the fact is that tons of companies right here talking in terms of their use tools in terms of what are available, and the companies paying a shitload of money to use those tools as well. But nothing is getting truncated to the next level of utilizing their data smartly. So I think we've often heard at conferences that there's a person called a data scientist who can sort of almost, give you all sorts of information of what's really happening on the app. But I think what we need is, a decoder on the other side who can sort of listen to this sort of data scientist and tell the company that let's do this.
Many companies don't even know what a data scientist is.
That's right.
Or what the function of a data scientist.
Some of the major reasons which we have seen, and some of them are mythbusters as well, are one of the primary reasons is they promise between what's being offered and what's being said, advertised versus what's being offered inside the app experience in itself. That's the first thing that we observe. The second thing is a major, which marketers often overlook, is the impact of push notifications, right? It increases their revenue, definitely increases their revenue, but they don't realize the negative impact of the push notifications themselves. The third primary, I'll just limit to three, is definitely space on the phone. It plays a major role, and we are seeing it very evidently. It plays a major role in deciding whether someone's going to use your app or they're going to go ahead and uninstall it.
It's interesting. Yesterday I met with one of our clients here and talking about some of the major pain points. It seems that it's not so much the battle for the screen now, it's the battle for storage, right? Devices now are being made cheaper and cheaper, which means that there's less and less storage on these devices. So you can get your app installed onto Android devices especially, and due to constraint on storage space, these apps get removed. So it's making your apps lighter, making sure that you, as a company, are engaging with your users much better and not violating that trust that you've established or trying to establish with them by doing push notifications or spamming them in other
So
in
also
other
very
areas.
sensitive, just to add there, along with storage is the data usage. It's often highly overlooked area, but we've done actual surveys and we've observed, people have started using apps which monitor data flowing through each apps. And during their free time, that's what they observe, and they go ahead and, even if they need it at a later point of time, they would still go ahead and uninstall it because data is expensive, all said and done. India is a 95% plus prepaid country, right? And that also plays a major role.
So Ronen, if I can ask you, sorry, but just getting into the moderator mode for a minute.
Sure.
Right from D1 till D30, right? Is there an experience that you guys can help us understand? Is without analytics, how does it look? And with analytics, how does it look? Because my personal experience has been when you observe the analytics correctly and you evaluate correctly, your D30 is far more better and efficient as compared to without, looking at analytics. So is there any kind of a data or research that you guys are aware about to share with the audience and tell the importance of analytics?
Sure. So without spoiling tomorrow, because tomorrow I have a keynote where I'm going to be presenting some of our data findings on retention, on some of the top performing platforms here in India, retention across different verticals on D1, D7, and D30 views. So I appreciate your question, but I'm not going to spoil my own presentation for tomorrow, if you don't mind.
Maybe can I ask them, because they won't be presenting.
Sure, sure.
Any insights for that? Like before analytics, how does D1 to D30 look like? And with look of analytics, evaluating of analytics, how does it look like?
There is one very simple answer. If you're not analyzing it, then you don't know what it looks like, right? If you are analyzing it, at least you have the data. So I think the biggest pain point or the biggest thing that companies need to take is they need to get the data, because if they're not looking at the data, then they're basically shooting in the dark. And the days of what we call spray and pray in this industry are long gone, right?
And if I can ask, I'm so sorry, but can I ask, what are the key things that a developer should be looking at when he's looking in his app, from an analytics point of view? Because it's a sea of data. And obviously, you can't spend all your time on all the data. So which are the top 3 things that all of us should look into it?
So that's a good question, one that I could answer. Yeah. I think there's several key points that companies need to measure along the user journey, and it's all about engagement and getting to LTV model that is part of how your business needs to operate. So for example, if you're a gaming company, you want to look at users first installing the app. Then are they completing a tutorial? And which tutorial they've completed. Second, are they registering an account? Are they signing in with Facebook? Third, their progression through the game. So for example, have they gotten past level 5? Have they gotten past level 15? Fourth, you want to look at, have they unlocked an achievement? Then you want to look if they're getting to what we call the holy grail moment, is are they ready to open their wallet and buy something, right? So you need to look at the progression, but you need to look at data points that are critical for you as a company, that really matter. Because if you're measuring too much, then it becomes very difficult on you. A lot of companies will ask, should I be measuring 200 different events inside my app? And my answer is, if you can make a decision based on 200 events, then do it. If you can make a better decision with looking at your critical data points, then limit that to those.
Okay, cool. You moderating.
I answered your question?
You moderating, sorry.
Now you can moderate.
Now you can moderate.
Thank you. Dr. Kushal, A/B testing. What do you see in A/B testing trends? What are your take on A/B testing?
So I think it's very, very, very critical in terms of, I think, just so many companies trying to put an app out there. And a lot of times, because what really happens is that there's certain mandates that, we've got to go live within 6 months, 9 months, whatever. So certain KPIs put. And what most often doesn't get done or gets done in the most shortest span of time is this testing. So I think something which needs most attention to, I think sometimes the apps, I think all of us have seen apps wherein there's even horrible issues of even fonts being different used. I mean, the basic error in terms of if you can actually even look at those things. So the point I'm making is that very, very critical, but it's just not getting done in the manner it should perhaps be done. And the fact is perhaps that as a company creating the app, you really haven't yet defined in terms of who is that one custodian to do it. More often than not, it gets played saying it's a team of people. So we I think, because we use the word team, you're just almost buck-passing responsibility. Does it lie with the actual designer? Does it lie with someone who, for example, I'm saying, I'm comparing that with writing a sheet of content and putting it up on a newspaper, and you actually have someone, actually going word by word of deciding in terms of everything's formatted right. We don't really have that person doing that job. And if it is there, it's confused in the organization.
Do you want to share your case study?
Yeah, it's nothing to do with A/B testing, but it's about monetization as to...
We love monetization. I think it's probably something people here want to know because, that's what it is at the end of the day, right? Where you're going to make your money from.
Let me give you an example of a company called Playrix. I hope everybody knows Playrix is one of the top developers across the world, and their flagship product is Township. So what they did was they realized that unless and until a player completes level 19, okay, and trust me, it takes almost 30 days to do it without paying.
30 days to get past level 19.
Past level 19. So what they realized is that instead of putting an advertisement at first level or 15th level, they looked at the data and realized that people don't buy after passing level 19. So whoever wants to buy is buying before level 19. Right? And again, after that, what they did was they didn't allow more than 3 ads a session. So they restricted it so that the player is still tempted to buy even if he gets a free reward. So it was a very interesting observation that they shared with us because the volume is still huge, right? So, but they are still making a lot of money on in-app because that's the way every developer wants to hear, right? Advertising is good, but at the end of the day, the big bucks are always in-app. But it was a very smart move. It made the player stay in the game for 30 days, pass 19 levels, is hooked on to the game, and obviously they're making money now through advertising with those players.
Interesting. I'm going to open for questions in a minute, so if anyone has something, get ready to raise your hand. Pritesh, there's a lot of talk about what we call omni-channel approach in marketing, right? Cross-device attribution, things like this. It's really, I think it's one of, for me, and it's an area that a lot of clients that we have talk about, omni-channel and how to measure true value. Do you have any insight on Indian market with regards to omni-channel marketing and basically being, the user being transient across different devices?
So not specific because we're focused more on mobile, but yeah, we do keep hearing about it. So the good part about the last 1.5 years has been, and it's a very good transition, that even the smallest of apps today now want to measure data and across screens or across devices. Right? It's not just the large apps, and thanks to SaaS, everyone gets access to the best of the tools that are there in the industry. So slowly and more rapidly now, beyond just data, people have started demanding insights or more deeper analysis that's available. So the trend from data to analysis is catching up faster, and more so across channels, with a single view of their whole app instead of different channels.
Very holistic view of
very
the whole.
realistic.
I think trying to paint the full picture, right, about what users are doing, because they're always transient, they're migrating. I'm not, maybe in India probably a little bit less than in other markets where PC and tablets still have a pretty big penetration, right? Here it's it's really a smartphone first market, right? Does anyone have any question that they want to ask?
There's a guy over there. Yeah, come on, Ronen, jog.
The 3 reasons that you said why people are uninstalling their apps is push notifications, storage crunch, and the data, one of the things. So I was wondering that, from your data, if you know that if people are aware that on Android you can shut down the push notifications, you can still have the app, but you can stop the notifications. Do they know about this? Second question is related to this. So if they're measuring how much data is the apps using, they should be going into the settings and they are going there, right? So why aren't they not simply shutting off the notification?
So honestly, and that's a very good question. I don't think most of the people, and when I say most, more than 90% of people actually know or take the pain to go and shut out individual push notifications. It's not as easy as in Android where you go ahead and right when you install the app, you're allowed to either enable or disable it. But in Android, it's much more difficult. You need to take multiple steps to go ahead and do it. And most of the users are unaware. But thankfully, thanks from Marshmallow onwards, that's changing. It's more towards aligning more with iOS standards, where if an app needs push notification, it will pop a message asking for its permission, and you can immediately enable and disable it. So I see the trend changing much more going forward this year.
My second question is related to the first question, is that if they're measuring their data, how much an app is using data-wise, they should be aware of that push notifications as well, right? I mean, if they're going into that settings.
So consumers are aware of data usage through a third-party app, not on their own, right? So they use a different app to measure data, usage of data, and hence, it's like they don't need to learn how to use it. It's an app which will automatically show them what amount of data is being used, right? And hence, they don't need to go through the complexity of actually understanding what data is being used by how many apps.
Hi, this is for anybody in the panel. My question is about, do you see any trends or any numbers around people shying away from apps which ask for a lot of permissions? Like, for example, an app which asks me for location and app settings and blah, blah, blah. I may or may not be happy about installing that app.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you ask me honestly, it wasn't before, it was very low. Users generally, including me, we used to download apps with all listed permissions that are available. And it really does not matter in the initial days of the app, but as more and more apps mature, and with the education of all the permissions and data privacy in India, I see that increasing. So people are more conscious, and we see app developers also being more conscious, more and more conscious about including or excluding a permission that may eventually lead to, them either not installing or immediately uninstalling the app. So it's definitely on the rise, and it's something which is of concern to app developers.
I would, so on one part I would agree. On another part, I think that the consumer is also, they're responsible and to know what permissions they're accepting. And I see that, how many people actually have decided not to install an app because it's asked for permissions, right? People are just too trigger happy to get this app on their phone and just accept stuff at will, right?
Absolutely.
When our OSs are updated, how many people read the terms and conditions that Apple or Google sends to you? Nobody, right? So I think that,
So it's true, and it's true for must-have apps. So apps like Facebook or WhatsApp, you're not even going to bother about it, right? But if there's an app with more alternatives, and if someone seeks fewer permissions, we see that trend, right, where people opt for it. And it's more from Marshmallow and onwards, because it's going to be more permission specific. Up until now, Android only had a long list, which people really did not bother. But we see that increasing.
Yeah, but if I can add, from a developer's point of view, in the last 1 year, we have our own SDK, and a lot of developers had ended up coming us telling, why are you asking this permission? If you want this permission, we are not integrating your SDK. So for us also, it was a big learning that even a developer is evolving of not asking for data unless there is a requirement of asking for it.
So just to give you some context, we've actually had to make changes to our SDK to make most of the permissions optional. Right. And earlier, it used to be the product managers of marketing. Product managers are asking why do you need a permission? Now even the developers ask, why do you need this permission? So that's the transition we see.
Good one. I think there was one.
I have one.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. My name is Karthik, and I'm from Sony Pictures. This question is again to Pritesh. A slight variation from the first one. While I agree with you, Pritesh,
Pritesh, everybody likes you.
While I agree with you on the data usage and the storage being one of the critical triggers for uninstalls, why do you say push notifications are? I always thought they are some means of getting engagements up on their app.
All right, great question. So by the way, the reasons that I said should not be generalized, because it's very app specific.
That's right.
I was more around major trends, and wait for our exclusive report when we release some more data. But to answer your question, push notifications have generally been treated as a spray and pray mechanism as well. Right? There's most of the apps, and I don't want to generalize all, but most of the apps just send push notifications, the same push notifications to everyone. There's no personalization or segmentation involved. Right? Although that leads to increase in transactions in some cases, it may bump up your transactions by, let's say, 0.1% or 0.5% or 5% maybe. But it also has a negative impact, which is not seen. Right? A common trend that we have seen is a lot of users, when they receive a push notification, right? And this is more for occasional apps, occasional using apps, where you just download it for one time or two time use, and then it just lies there. So you've seen that when a user sees that push notification, he realizes, oh shit, I have this app on my phone, and I must just get rid of it, and they go ahead and uninstall it. Right? Or we see that a lot of users are not. Again, it's about measuring. You need to know your audience. So we see that if a lot of users, if they see too many promotional push notifications, and which are generalized again, they don't like it and they'll go ahead and uninstall it. So that's the damage. And those set of users might have bought from you at a later point of time, but you're already losing them.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Sorry, I think that you guys can probably take this discussion offline because we're out of time. Just when things are starting to heat up and get a little bit more exciting. CRV, can we have another hour up here, please? So, thank you, panelists. Pleasure to
Thanks,
have a
Ronen.
session together.
It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure and nice to see you in India, other than Bangkok.
Hey, as long as you guys welcome me here, I'm always coming. Like I said last night, I'll move here.
Thank you.